Welcome to the Dusty Muffins, where menopause meets sisterhood and strength. We're three menopause specialists coming together to laugh, share, and empower you through the wild ride of menopause and perimenopause. Whether you're curious, confused, or just looking for real talk, you're in the right place. We're here to answer your burning questions, educate, and advocate, all with a dash of humor and a lot of heart. So pull up a chair and join the conversation. Before we dive in, please remember, while we're doctors, we're not your doctors. This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice. We encourage you to partner with your own medical clinician to address your unique health needs. This is the Dusty Muffins.
I'm Dr. Rebbecca Hertel. I'm a board-certified osteopathic family medicine physician and a Menopause Society certified practitioner. I have a private telemedicine practice, and I see patients in several different states.
I am Dr. Aoife O'Sullivan, a board-certified family physician and Menopause Society certified practitioner, and I see patients through my telemedicine practice here in Oregon and Washington.
I'm Dr. Hart Kress, a board-certified women's health nurse practitioner and menopause certified practitioner, and I see patients via telemedicine in several states as well.
All right, so welcome back to the Dusty Muffins. Our guest today is Gabriella Espinosa, a wellness educator, podcaster, and advocate for women in the menopause transition. Gabriella brings a unique perspective on the mind-body connection, and she's been creating powerful conversations around how we move through this stage of life with more strength, compassion, and knowledge. We're thrilled to have her with us. Welcome.
Thank you. Such a pleasure to be here with you.
This is fantastic. So she was just telling us that she just got home from a trip, kind of work pleasure trip, and always that transition into like getting back home and, you know, sleeping in your own bed. And I don't know about you, but I need like days to recover, although I never feel like I take,
even take time.
Yeah, exactly. And the older I get, I'm like, I need some days.
Yes. You need a vacation from your vacation.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
I find that, here, we were in Europe, we were in Portugal, and where things were it was like we were in this place on the coast of Portugal called Comporta, where the lifestyle prescription is like laid back and slow living. So we totally owned that. We were like totally slow living. It was beautiful. And so I came back to the States, and it's like everyone's ready to go. Like, let's go, send me this, send me that. Let's record that. Let's record this. And I'm like, I'm just not ready.
Yeah. I like to vacation that way, where I am not doing a ton of things. I like to just be like, I'm not doing anything. And if I want to, then I will.
Yeah. And it was just like such a pleasureful filled holiday. I went for a training I did an intimacy and attraction training with one of my mentors that I've had for a long time. So learned all the things, went deeper into this exploration of intimacy and attraction. And then I put it all into practice with my husband. And so came back and I was like, no, take me back to intimacy and attraction. I prefer to dive into, I could totally live in that space for a long time. But, got to get to work.
Oh, I love it.
There's a lot of envious men out there because we all go to training and there's no putting it into practice.
Do you spend much time in Europe, Gabriella? America is definitely a different pace than Europe, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I used to live in the UK for 16 years. I lived there until just after the pandemic. We moved back to the US in 2022. And it's taken me a little time to adjust. And it's just a different pace of life here. And I love it. I mean, I love that energy, this can-do energy that Americans have. I'm American. I was born and raised in Houston, Texas. So I get it. But it's, I kind of like the more slow living lifestyle and the longer holidays that Europeans take, and they really, really enjoy them by just turning off work apps, work everything, work notifications, and it's really, and really enjoying living in the moment of that vacation. So I
Oh,
learned my time living in Europe.
when we moved to the US, I was like, wait a second, there's such a thing as a 1 week vacation. Like that is unheard of. You know, a vacation is 2 weeks because you're just coming down the first week and then the second week you're actually vacationing. So we don't do everything right here. Like there is, these 1 week vacations are too short, really, I think, for people to get rest and actually relax. And when you were over in the UK, Gabriella, had you wanted to live there? Did you move there for work, or
Yeah,
how did you end up?
we moved there for work, and it ended up being 16 years. So I raised my kids there, and met a lot of went through my perimenopause to menopause transition there. So that's where I experienced everything. And as you probably know, the whole menopause conversation really kind of started blossoming in the UK, based, with Davina McCall's documentary. And I got connected. I was hooked into a lot of experts and wellness practitioners who were entering that menopause space. So I feel my foot in the door before it kind of exploded here in the US. So, but it allowed me to move to the US and then just say, this is where I need to go. This is where I kind of just inserted myself into the menopause space here. And it's been great. Everyone's been so warm and welcoming, and it's all, it's ongoing, right? It's still in development. It's still in process. And, practitioners like you are all making it happen. So I'm so grateful to you for this podcast and for just keeping the conversation going, because we're only just getting started.
Likewise, we're really grateful for you as well and all the work you've done.
Yeah, I'd like to dive a little bit into your essay, that kind of what inspired you to write this. It was the perimenopause, journey that left you kind of disconnected from your body, fearing that your sex life was over, that intimacy was over. Tell our listeners just a little bit about that and about the essay.
Oh, so the essay is part of this book, this anthology of midlife essays called Midlife Private Parts. It's a collection of about 25 essays, all from midlife women who are exploring the transition through midlife. And so my essay is called Midlife Awakening, Finding My Way Back to Pleasure. And, like so many of us, I grew up in a household, in a family where sex was not talked about. The only talk I ever got came from my very Catholic grandmother, who warned me in my teens. Your Gabriella, she sternly warned me, Gabriella, your body is a temple. Don't ever let anyone in. And I chose to ignore that warning for a few decades. I mean, pleasure for me as a young woman was a big part of my identity. It made me feel alive, free, really deeply connected to my body. And then somewhere between motherhood, the endless to-do list, the fatigue, the overwhelm, I lost that connection to pleasure. Perimenopause, that, kind of unexpected house guest that keeps you up at night and, totally turned off the light to my libido. And I felt numb, disconnected, and asking myself, is this the end? And then, something inside me whispered, this isn't the end. It's the beginning. And so I began a journey of self-discovery. I found a mentor, a teacher in Europe, in the UK, actually in Amsterdam. I used to travel to her in Amsterdam. And it was just a slow, intimate process of really getting to know myself again, getting to know what lights me up. I started with self-pleasure, and that was a whole exploration because it was something that, I didn't grow up doing. Self-pleasure, masturbation, that was not something I did.
Yeah.
So it was really getting to know myself intimately in that way, not as a quick fix, but really as an act of self-love, as an act of devotion to my body. And yeah, I befriended the most intimate parts of myself. I learned what I liked, what I didn't like. And yeah, I found my way back to pleasure. And during that journey of self-discovery, I realized, and yeah, in one sense, my grandmother was right, right? My body is a temple. It's a temple that I get to worship through my own self-devotion, where I get to make choices about who and when I invite to join me there. And I learned that it wasn't like the hottest tips, tricks, or toys, even though I have a lot of those and I love them. It's not about those things that helped me reclaim my sexual self. It was really about getting to know myself intimately. And that's what I guide women. It's in that process of intimacy with self, because you can't really connect with another person until you get to know yourself intimately first. Peeling back layers of shame, the narratives we've inherited about our sexuality, uncovering stories that say, you know, I'm not worthy of pleasure. And so that was a journey that I went on. And, you know, I finally welcomed my true sexual self home. And I invited my husband in the journey as well. So my essay is about that. It's about the journey that I went through, and then how I invited my husband into that journey. And, you know, discovering that midlife isn't the end of pleasure. It's really an exciting new chapter. Self-pleasure became my pathway for my own awakening. But now, you know, 6 years postmenopausal, I feel really more connected to myself, more at home in my skin. I accept and, you know, appreciate my body, and, you know, recognize myself as a sexual being, and I can communicate. That's the thing. I can now communicate my desires to my husband, to my partner, and I can prioritize it. That's the main thing. I prioritize my pleasure in every sense of the word, you know, and not only in the bedroom, but outside the bedroom as well. So that's the journey that I try to guide women in my coaching programs.
I mean,
Did you do coaching? Were you doing different type of coaching before you kind of had this self awareness and awakening and then pivoted? Or was it like a documentary, a movie, a something, then you're like, aha, and then went through the process and now we're helping people? Like, I'm like trying to like,
Yeah, well, you know, I did start off about 20 years ago as a yoga and mindfulness teacher. So I did have that practice of self-awareness, of tuning in. So that was the foundation. But that did help. But it didn't really prepare me for the shame and the silencing that I felt around my sexuality, right? When I realized when sort of the light to my libido turned off, as I say, in perimenopause. And I don't want to only blame it on perimenopause. We know that it's a confluence of so many factors, right? It can be hormonal. It can be, you know, the internal narratives that we have. It can be a shift in how we approach desire, right? I don't know if you've covered the difference between spontaneous and responsive desire, right? When we enter into a relationship, right, we have that hot, heavy fire, you know, that kind of fireworks all over the place. And then as we head into the demands of motherhood, if you choose to be a mother, work, right, stress, overwhelm, all that also can impact your desire. And then as you move through perimenopause and menopause, it's also the narratives, like, should I be doing this? Is I, am I, if it's, some of us interpret desire or sexuality only as a function of our reproductive years, or that's what we're told, right? And so responsive desire is really about coming back home to yourself and realizing that it's not going to happen at the drop of, at the flick of a switch, that it really takes tending to. Your desire takes tending to, and it really is about that intimacy of getting to know yourself. What lights you up? What is it that you like? Asking yourself, what do I desire? Most women never ask themselves that. They're always in service of others, trying to please and serve others, and never take a moment to ask, what is it that I desire? What is it that I want? And so this leads to prioritizing the pleasure of your partner, whether it's faking orgasms or, gritting it through painful sex. But it's a radical notion of like saying, my pleasure matters too, and it's a priority. And, I think if you can communicate that to a partner, your partner will understand too. I mean, men aren't taught these things either. My husband had no idea. And when you're younger, sex is just something that you do. You don't really talk about it, right? It's just something that you do. And so you don't have a language for it. And so one of the things that shocked me most was just the silencing around my sexuality, menopause and aging, that we're all trying to unsilence. There was this collective silencing, and now we're engaged in this collective unmuting, which is so powerful. And I think, in the end, we can talk openly about hot flushes, brain fog, sleepless nights, but that come with menopause. But when it comes to our sexuality, our changing bodies, our changing desires, our needs around intimacy, the silence is deafening. And it hurts us. I think it harms us, that silence. We don't know how to talk about it with our doctors. We don't know how to talk about it with our partners. We can't even come to terms with it with ourselves. So a lot of it is, just talking about it in that coaching environment that I have with women, is just being able to have that safe space to talk about it.
Want the Dusty Muffins at your next event? We do panels, live podcasts, and talks that bring the heat, literally. Corporate, see-me, or retreats, we've got you. So hit us up at thedustymuffins333@gmail.com or DM us on Instagram at thedustymuffins.
And even, we have studies that show your sexual health is connected to your longevity. People who have an active sex life and are happy in their sex life and intimacy with their partner live longer.
Absolutely. Yeah. Why? I mean, we all know, I'm sure you may have talked about the benefits of engaging in sexual activity, right? Blood flow, that oxytocin, right? That connection with a partner. And I think what really stops women in their tracks is like, they think it needs to be like it used to be. And so midlife is such a beautiful opportunity to rewrite the scripts, the scripts. It's not, sex is not going to be like it was in your 20s and 30s. It's going to be different. It may feel different, but it may feel even better than before, because you get to explore, what is it that I like now? What feels good now? And when you give yourself the space and the time and you prioritize it, you can explore and awaken new pleasure pathways.
So I think recommend that women start to rewrite that script. Is it starting with self? Is it talking to your partner? Is it getting help from a coach or a doctor? Like, how do you approach that?
Yeah, all of the above, right? We know it's biopsychosocial, right? Part of it can be biology. So definitely I talk about it a lot on my podcast, and I'm sure you have too, about really looking after our sexual health. Sexual health is health, it's pleasure, and that's essential for our well-being and our longevity. So really, I was so clueless, so clueless about even knowing about the changes, the vulvovaginal changes through perimenopause and menopause. I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know how to talk to my doctor about it. So I say first start there, really prioritizing your vulvovaginal health, especially when you start. I knew there were change. I started experiencing the changes, in perimenopause, but I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know that burning, itching, those UTIs after sex, which then made me turn away from sex for a while, were a thing. Like, it was just like constantly recurring, right? I didn't know they were a thing. I was I didn't know I could get it looked after by a doctor. So now we're knowing that, vaginal estrogen is the gold standard for those symptoms of genitourinary syndrome of menopause, even as early as postpartum, because postpartum we experience those changes too, as you probably know, and in perimenopause. So you don't have to wait till you're in menopause to get on vaginal estrogen. So really look after your vulvovaginal health. And again, I think vaginal estrogen is the gold standard, along with moisturizers and lubes. I use all the things, looking after my sexual health just the same way that I look after my face, my hair. It's a whole routine. It's a whole vulvovaginal routine that I have. And it's a priority. You have to prioritize it, right? Because why not? I mean, it's an essential part of your body and an essential part of your longevity and your pleasure. So I start there really, and connecting my clients with qualified providers who can look after them and empowering them to know what to ask for and how to start these conversations, not to leave it to the very end when they're walking out of a well woman.
By the way, as your hands on the door.
Yeah, like really asking for it, asking for what you need there. So starting there, that's a priority. And then getting to know yourself intimately, befriending your vulva, as I say, right? Befriending your vulva. I had never looked at my vulva. I had never done that.
And they don't want to, and they're embarrassed to. Yeah.
I didn't even know the names of my own sexual anatomy. I didn't even know. I just knew that if I had sex in a certain position, which was being on top, which I now know was stimulating the clitoris, right? That worked for me. That worked for me all the time. But I didn't know that all of a sudden when it stopped working, that it was because I had lost sensation there, and it was because I was experiencing some vaginal atrophy. I didn't know that, right? So really getting to know what your normal is by getting to know all your parts, right? Know your clitoris, your inner outer labia, the entrance, right? Explore, right? First with a mirror. I have a very beautiful practice. In yoga, something that I did learn in yoga, the yogis have this beautiful name for our sexual anatomy called the yoni. And you may have heard of it, the yoni, which is, they really view it as this sacred space for female power, for female creativity, the source of life, right? And I don't know, when we reframe it from, and looking at ourselves from this perspective, like awe and wonder. I have this space, like that beautiful image you have behind you, Rebbecca. Oh my God, how gorgeous is that?
Yeah.
Right? How gorgeous is that to really so to look at ourselves, this part of ourselves from that place of reverence, it really is the seat of our power, reproductive power. Yes. Creative power when you tap into it, sexual power, pleasure, so much is in this place between our legs, right? And so when we befriend ourselves from that place of reverence and acknowledgement, I think we can shift. There's a lot of things we can shift. So I guide women through that process. I have some audios that I record, I have this vulva love meditation of just really placing your hand on your heart, cupping your hand over your vulva, and starting to befriend your vulva in that way, right? Starting to come into that relationship from a place of reverence.
That's a beautiful way to think about it.
It's not something you just have to fix. Of course, we have to deal with the hormonal issue and, the vaginal estrogen. Maybe that's the biological part, but then there's the psychological part, right? Really coming into it from this place of reverence. And I think that shifted things for me. I used to, my teacher once invited me to draw a picture of my vulva, which was terrifying. But when I looked at it, I still have it. It's in my journal. It looked like that picture behind you, right? Mm-hmm. Rebbecca, wow, so beautiful. So beautiful. So I encourage women to draw pictures of their vulvas, to gaze at their vulvas from that place of, reverence, take a mirror, take a look, but not only to know from, to befriend, but also, really also from a health standpoint, just to get to know what your normal is and to know what's changing. So I try to, bridge those two aspects because I think they're both so important, right? Knowing how your sexual health is changing, what you can do to make it better, to enhance it, and to restore the integrity of your vulvovaginal tissue so that, you can keep enjoying pleasure for a lifetime.
Feeling off in midlife? I'm Dr. Rebbecca Hertel, and I offer concierge telemedicine across multiple states focused on hormones, weight, libido, and sleep, and longevity. Let's get you thriving. So visit www.osteopathicmidlifehealth.com.
I hope our listeners are filled with hope listening to you because, watching you on social media, listening to your podcast, reading your work, it's very obvious that you are a very sensual and sexual being. And yet you didn't feel like that a few years ago, so I think they're the women that we see, right? Who feel like they've lost themselves like that. And then to listen to you and hear you say that you got that back. It's so hopeful.
Yeah, that's what I want women to know, that there is, as one of my friends says, there is light at the end of the vaginal tunnel.
Yes. And how long, Gabriella, and I know that journey would be different for everybody, but for you and the fact that you did it, or it seemed that was a journey you did on your own and then eventually brought your husband or your partner, spouse into that journey. How long did that journey take for you? And was your partner okay with, letting you go explore yourself and your sexual health? And then how did you incorporate your partner back in?
Yeah, I think, first it was understanding that from the first conversation was, okay, I'm going to travel to meet this teacher. I'm going to take this course with her. She's, first of it was like, I don't know if I can bring in this conversation that this is going to be an investment in my pleasure. Like the shame women have of like, it's going to be an investment. It's going to take money and time. Yeah. But oh my gosh, it's so well worth it. Why? I mean, if you know if it's important for you and you want to prioritize it, it's well worth your investment. So first, it's the first step of like, okay, yes, this is worth prioritizing and investing in. So it's having that conversation with my husband, and he was fine with it. He knew that I was just so feeling so disconnected. I just didn't know how he definitely, there was a shift in our marriage in terms of our sexual relationship. And that was an issue for a while, right? It was an issue. So we had to have those difficult conversations. And, he was okay with me having, doing the things that I needed to do to go on that path of self-exploration. I said, I was already a yoga teacher, so he was already used to me going off and doing my own kind of practices and self-exploration. And, when there were moments when we would hit, it took time, it was like starting and stopping. And when we would hit little road blocks, he's like, are you doing your self-pleasure practice, Gabriella? But no, so it took,
maybe,
it's been a journey, and we're still on that journey, and we're still discovering that there's so much more to explore. So it's always been a journey. And the more that I learn, the more that I invite my husband into that exploration, the more we realize that we can rewrite the sexual scripts that we were given, that there's always deeper levels of intimacy that you can engage in with a partner, whether it's, trying a new position in bed, whether it's reading or listening to audio erotica together, whether it's trying, sex in a different room, or just spicing things up by listening to different types of music or trying different types of foreplay, or really taking your time and slowing things all the way down, like really slowing down, and then just letting your partner understand. I think most partners want to please their female partners. I think they do, but they just don't know. So you have to step into the role of guide and teacher, not from like, you got to do this or you never do this, but really as an invitation. It's an invitation to explore things differently. There's more out there for us. Let's explore. Let me teach you. Let me teach you what I've learned, what I'm learning about my body. Right. And so if you engage in that self-pleasure practice and you know what feels good in your body, and then you can literally take your husband's or your partner's hand and guide them into what feels good. And so it takes time. And yes, the hormones have helped. The vaginal estrogen has helped. Getting on HRT has helped, but it's, I don't think anything can replace this kind of self-knowing, this self-intimacy of like getting to know yourself and really slowing things down, and, the art of communication and creating and prioritizing and creating that space for intimacy. And the latest, I didn't start testosterone till 8 months ago. So I've been on this journey for about maybe almost 10 years, and it's gotten better and better. It keeps, delivering the fruits. And I just started testosterone 8 months ago. And that I noted, I thought my libido was fine. I thought, oh, wow, I know all the things. All the things have been great. And that was very eye-opening too. I'm like, oh my gosh, what I thought things were fine. Now things are even better. That definitely did spark things up.
That's
definitely
awesome.
It helped. Like I initiate more. I'm less inhibited. I initiate more. I'm less inhibited. You're a doctor, so you can tell me. I'm still waiting for a doctor to tell me, does it improve? I think it does. I've heard from various doctors, it does improve vulvovaginal tissue, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel the sensations are different. I feel things are different. My husband feels things different. Like something's changed, I can feel things. So it keeps giving and giving. Postmenopause keeps giving and giving.
I love it. Oh my gosh.
I think you really hit upon something that I think, women need to know or hear more about, because I think some women, like if you ask them, how's the testosterone working? I don't notice any difference, but I think it's not always in like all of a sudden, like your clitoris is going to engorge and you're going to have, like an erection like a man, and, your brain's going to be filled with all those thoughts. But are you initiating more than you used to? It's some of those behavior things that are different, that are really signs of improved libido, versus I think a lot of women are thinking like it's going to be this bodily eruption that happens. But, and I mean, maybe you're just less annoyed when someone propositions you, and then maybe success is I proposition them. I mean, what are your thoughts? How do you set those expectations now? Because I waited a really long time to go on testosterone as well. So how do you set those expectations now that you've been on testosterone for your clients?
For my clients? Yeah, I think also it's always, again, it comes back to this intimacy with self, like tuning into how you're feeling, right? I really guide women. I do a lot of nervous system regulation practices, really tuning into how you're feeling. And again, my definition of intimacy is feeling what there is to be felt, right? And so if you have that awareness, okay, maybe when I see my husband, right, and this is what happens to me now, right? Whereas before, if I saw him approaching, maybe I would, turn around. When I see him approaching, okay, like something, I feel something, right? It can be like a flutter in my stomach, or, in my belly, or maybe, a little tingling in my vulva, or I'm like, oh my gosh, right? Like, what do you do with that? Do you just say, oh, I can't go there now? What do you do with that? What do you do with that? Like notice those sensations, like they're little tiny things that you notice. Maybe, yeah, you notice that your husband looks more attractive to you now, or you feel that you want to initiate by touch, a cuddle, a hug. It doesn't have to be sexual, right? It doesn't have to be sexual. Or maybe you want to spend longer times in beds, or you want to, wake up in the morning and just, yeah, spend that longer time in bed and exploring what's possible. So all of those are sensations that are bubbling up in the body. And mindfulness practices, Lori Brotto wrote this incredible book, Mindfulness for Sexual Desire, in which she looked at studies of mindfulness and tuning into sensation, sensate focus, really allowing yourself. I think some of us, especially in this hustle culture that we were talking about earlier, right? We turn off those sensations. I don't have time for that right now.
Right. There's too many other things going on. Mm-hmm.
There's too many other things. So you really have to, and that's, yeah, we got to get work done. We got to get shit done. But okay, so take time on the weekend.
Yeah, I say that a lot.
To prioritize it, right? Like, okay, we're going to take time on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning where you block off the calendar and just notice what comes up and allow yourself to feel those sensations and allow yourself to respond to those sensations and just get curious about where that takes you. And it can just be cuddling, right? It doesn't have to be anything sexual. It can just be just self-touch or taking turns with self-touch, taking turns, and, anything, right? Just taking turns, giving each other pleasure, right? So you really have to take time and prioritize it. That's what I try to get women to understand. It's not something that happens quickly, especially, maybe that's the change that happened. Maybe that's a gift of midlife, that it offers us more time, more space. Yeah. And, the arousal is slower. It's a slower build. It's not going to be hot and heavy maybe all the time, but it's so beautiful when you can just give yourself that time, that space, and prioritize it. And I think women feel, I know that was for me, it's like, when you're younger, it's like, it can happen like a light switch. I was talking to my son who's in college. He's 21 years old and he's heard me, he sees all the books and he's heard me talk about pleasure, and he's a really sensitive soul. And, he was having some, relationship girlfriend issues and, I'm like, I hope you're really taking your time. Just slow down and take your time. He's like, yeah, I'm doing that, Mom. I'm doing that. But a lot of girls don't want to, right? They just want to get to it. And yeah, maybe when we're younger, it's, our libido is like, we really want to get down to it. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's great. And that's so much fun, right? That spontaneous desire. And then most women, as we spoke about earlier, and we move through demands of life, midlife, hormonal changes, that spontaneous desire it's going to wane. It's not there anymore. And so we mourn that, or we long for that. We think that's going to come back, but there's so much more to explore in that whole responsive desire kind of arousal state. So much to explore it.
Yeah. And do you help women? We see a lot of women, they're really in this transition where they're still, their kids are still at home. They're still working. They are, and they're taking care of their elderly parents. And so just like you said, the time isn't there for them and they can't get away, because I'll say, well, if you went away for a weekend or an overnight, would it be different? But I think sometimes the problem is getting that time to do that, right? So when you're coaching a woman or a couple, do you help them, deal with that aspect? I think because I think that's a lot of what our perimenopausal, late perimenopausal women are going through.
Yeah. No, and I get it because I was there too, right? You really have to create the time and the space for it, right? You have to create the time and the space for it. Mm-hmm. I mean, unless you're lucky and your libido comes firing back and you can do quickies and, right. or whatever, but I don't know. But I also, we have a whole other half of life ahead of us. So I'm amazed. It took, me time I had 3 kids and they slowly left college, and and I have elderly parents, and but I think it's when you go for more of, it's quality over quantity, right? When you take care of when you prioritize your pleasure, when you make the space and time for it, and really allow yourself to just relish in that moment, you realize, okay, yeah, it's back. It's there. And if you let that build be a strong foundation for your relationship, that you can always come back to it. You can always come back to it, and you make time for it. You get a babysitter and you go rent a hotel room for a night. You do a staycation, right? Like I said, I know not everyone has the luxury of doing that, but it does take time and space to do that. So, sending the kids away, or, if the kids are away at a swim meet my youngest son was home, he was the last one left at home. He had swim meets and they lasted for hours.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm not taking you to swim meet today. I'm finding you a ride. So I would coordinate with moms and find a ride. And that would be like a whole day that I would have with my husband. And that would be the time that we'd set aside when my son was at a swim meet. Right. And that's, you have to find ways
you have to lose the mom guilt to do that too, right?
That's leave the mom guilt. Oh my gosh. And the mom guilt is real, right?
It's
the mom
real.
Guilt is real.
Yes.
But I had to make that difficult decision, right? That difficult decision of sending my son, not going to a swim meets. I would go every year for years. And last year I stopped going. I'm like, I'm done, right? This is not giving me pleasure going to swim meets, being in a
hours.
Steamy,
they're like track meet. I get it.
Swimming arena all day long. It's just not, right? I have to be here. It's a difficult decision. And what's also interesting is that, the mom guilt, and that your children start seeing that you're changing, because you're not the same mom that you are, always there, available for them in every way. Like when my kids started seeing that, I could see the hurt in them, right? And it was hurtful for me, right? It was hurtful. But I think, they needed to see a mom that was prioritizing their pleasure, that was vibrant, that they needed to see 2 parents that really connected intimately and were enjoying each other. And like, I know we've provided an incredible role model for them, right? Because they were seeing that level of, relationship deepening with my husband. We weren't just admin people, going over admin things and just boats, floating by in the night, ships in the night, right? We weren't that anymore. We weren't bickering anymore. We weren't doing any of that anymore. We were really, moving into the space of really prioritizing our pleasure and falling in love again. And they've seen that, like they've witnessed that. And so they know that's part of that, but it was painful to that kind of, I think, how kids go through that individuation. I think as moms, we have to go through that individuation ourselves as well with our kids. It's painful, but we got to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I think my kids start to see that. Yeah, I think we're all experiencing some of that.
Yeah, it's so funny. I really feel like lately I've been not doing as much for the kids as I used to do. With that in mind, it's so funny. It just kind of started naturally. I thought, it's better that, like with the swim meets, I mean, looking back in time, much healthier that you and your husband spend time on your relationship and keep your family healthy. And your relationship healthy, rather than go to a swim meet.
Yeah.
But in the moment, it's so much easier to just go to the swim meet.
That's right.
Yeah.
And wanting to be there, I remember like, oh my God, I got to be there to give my son his snacks, his energy boosting snacks, so he can win the race. And I'm like, okay, this is what I packed for your lunch. This is what you got to eat. And so he learned, okay, what's going to fuel and feed me for this long day of swim meets, instead of me being there to hand feed
Right.
him the things.
And you gave him
It's
an
like crazy.
independence. That's
Yes,
important
yeah.
too. Yeah, it's very important. And it's important
And
for
he's
them
one of
to
the most
see when they
independent
get,
kids.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
He's
when they
so
get to this
empowered.
age,
Yeah. Super empowered now with his own health, with, feeding himself for performance, running because he still swims, he still runs, and then prioritizing the pleasure of his girlfriends.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. So, Gabriella, if you could leave our listeners with one powerful message about sex and menopause, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. Menopause does not mean the end of your sexual pleasure. It is only the beginning. It can be the beginning, but it really takes prioritizing yourself, getting to know yourself better, and rewriting those scripts, rewriting those sexual scripts. And getting to know yourself better is really getting to know your body, getting to know what you like, and then being able to communicate that and to your partner, to yourself. Even if you're not, I have clients who are not partnered and they're having an amazing time just exploring their bodies, knowing that that's still there for them, right? Because at the end of the day, it really is there for us. It's really for us that we're building this well source of pleasure for ourselves. Of course, it's beautiful to share it and connect with another person with it, but it's helping us feel pleasure. It's helping us deliver that oxytocin to our cells. It's helping us deliver blood flow to our vulvovaginal tissues. We're doing it for ourselves, right? So, and it does contribute to our health and longevity. So it's never too late. It's not the end. Please, please, please. Know that it takes time and it's an ongoing journey. It's an ongoing journey. It's not going to be delivered in a snap. And it's not a quick fix, but if you just allow yourself to have some curiosity, so many doors will open. So many doors will open when you just allow yourself, and that reverence for your body and where it's taking you and where it can take you, with the right support of incredible doctors like you.
Well, and speaking of that, how can our listeners find you if they want to work with you and find you to also follow you?
Thank you so much. So I'm on Instagram at Gabriella Espinosa. And if you go to, I post a lot about pleasure and menopause and share my journey there. And then my website is pleasureinthepause.com, where if you go there, you can download some of these, this vulva love meditation that I mentioned earlier. There's a little bundle of freebies there, including a body love journal. So some journaling prompts to help you start exploring, what is it that I desire? How do I feel about my body? How do I feel about my vulva? How do I want to experience pleasure in this next stage of life? So there's about 10 journaling prompts there in this body love journal. And there's also a lovely breath meditation. So you get all three in this pleasure bundle. So you can download that for free. And then I have podcast conversations. I do expert conversations as well as solo podcasts. All at pleasureinthepause.com.
Awesome. Do you want to close us out, Aoife? All right. So Gabriella, thank you so much for sharing your insights and stories today. We love how you're weaving wellness, storytelling, and community into the menopause conversation and intimacy and sharing your own journey with us. Listeners, if you want more from Gabriella, be sure to check out her podcast and Instagram that she had, and we'll also link that for you as well. And of course, subscribe to the Dusty Muffins so you don't miss this chat or any of our others.